controversy about Argo Dam, but I wanted, in case somebody doesn't know, was triggered when the then DEQ, you know, the DEQ is now merged back with the DNR the way it used to be years ago. And the DEQ said that there was a problem with the dam. And when you looked at it closely, you found out it wasn't really the dam they're concerned about. It's the raceway along the side and the berm that exists there. And their concern was that in a really big storm event, that berm could start to give out and water could flood through there and there would be consequences downstream. Not only to the river, but possibly to someone who was caught out in the floodway when that happened. So that was their concern. And that got blown out of shape into the fact that there was a much, you know, it seemed as if to some that there was a much larger problem. And people began, I think, to get into camps about that. And there certainly were people who were saying the dam needs to go. There's a nationwide push for removing what are deemed to be unnecessary dams. The city operates the Barton Dam, and we build up a head of water there and produce electricity, and that's helping us actually on the energy side. You know, we're using, because we're very efficient and we're doing a whole lot of stuff, about 15% of the energy that city government uses now is renewable energy. So that's a good thing. And we get our drinking water there, an important function, of course. And Argo and Gallup dams are no longer used for those purposes, and you know all these stories. And so they were deemed, at least Argo was deemed expendable by some folks who were working on this issue. Interestingly, a lot of the people who'd like to see the dam out are old friends and allies of mine, because I've been aligned and working with people in the environmental movement for a long time. Way back in the late 80s, I was the chairman of the board of Recycle Ann Arbor. And I joined the Watershed Council Board in 1997 or 98, and know the folks real well. Anyway, we arrive at today. We got the report out, we arrive at today, and let me just go back to August, where this issue was before City Council, and I asked for more information. And nobody on City Council objected to that, and so we went out to get more information. We hired a company that was a consultant, and we asked them to put in, they decided actually they wanted to put in something called a piezometer. And the piezometer will detect what kind of flow is going through that earthen berm that we're talking about here. And this was because our engineers and people took a look at that, inspected it, and really said, we don't think there's anything wrong with it. So in opposition to the DEQ's claim, we investigated. This was the Stantec report that came out. And the status of that, when it came back out, was the consultant said there is no imminent danger of failure, which was contrary to the DEQ's opinion about what might be wrong with the earthen berm. And this is backed up by the data from the piezometers, and while it's not a very extensive study, and it's not as extensive as it could be, it is quite an extensive study. And we have a report that's been sent off to DEQ, and the last note we had on this January 14th, the DEQ said they are nearly complete in putting together their commentary on the Stantec report. So the DEQ has a couple of choices to make. The DEQ can pursue their original mission and say, we don't believe this report is true. And we'll say, where's your data? They can proceed and say, okay, we accept the report. And Stantec is saying that monthly inspection of the tow drains is warranted, and we're willing to do that. Certainly we are. You know, back in November, we put in what's called a stop log to stop the flow through there. So it's fine, there's nothing happening there. The DEQ could come back and say, okay, we want more work done to determine, you know, you can have a more extensive study, although we've had a pretty good one. They could say we want you to uncover the ends of the tow drains, which will become filled in and grown over. That's something we can do. So we don't know what they're going to say, but I met with Sue McCormick, who heads up that whole area for us on Tuesday of this week, and she thinks the conversations are going along the route that there's going to be a compromise perhaps. A compromise could be that we would put the stop log in there seasonally. So we would really like to have that raceway open for the canoeing season. If I remember right, 60,000 canoeists go through there, use that every year. So that's something we could probably live with, meaning that we would put the stop log in November at the end of the canoe season and take it back out in April. We're going to find out, hopefully, in the next couple of weeks, and that'll be the next action point, I guess, or the next point where City Council is informed on what's going on and where we're going to go from there. But in my mind, for quite some time now, many months, the position has been saying, we don't think there's very much wrong there, and now we have a study to support it. Let me get back a minute to that whole question, though, because there was a lot of controversy, as you know, about what's going to happen with the dam, and there were people who were saying the dam's got to come out, and others who were saying we should leave it, and there's really nothing wrong with it. And there's a dispute, I think, that about what are the environmental values that we're trying to reach, and how much of an impact would it make if the dam were out. Huron has a whole bunch of dams on it. And is it really going to be a significant impact if we take that one out? And I often think, if we're going to take that one out, why wouldn't we take Argo out too, or Gallup out too? If we're going to remove Argo, why wouldn't we take out Gallup? And is there a push to take out dams all the way along the Huron? The Energy Commission on which I sit, although I wasn't there the night they voted on it, they meet on a Tuesday night, and we had a special council meeting with the Planning Commission. The Energy Commission voted to keep the dam because they think that even though the energy production possibilities right now are pretty low, as you go into the future, you see the prices of energy going up, something the Energy Commission is very concerned about. It may become viable again. That's a possibility. But if I had to judge the mood of the city right now, and the city council, I would judge and say that the dam's going to stay. There's cost to keeping the dam. Jeff, I can leave you some cost estimates. And it looks like the dam, because there's insurance on Argo, but it looks like in 2011 annual maintenance is going to be about 20 grand. There's $17,500 in annual insurance. And then it goes on like that. It goes up a little bit every year, just pretty much from inflation. And then there's some points about every 5 years where there's considerable maintenance needed. And that can jump up to $250,000. At some point here they have, yeah, that's about it, $257,000. And then of course there's a sheet here for Gallup as well. One of the things that we try to do at the city, and this is something to understand about city budgets, is money's in buckets. The utilities money is in one bucket, that's what you pay for your water and sewer bills and stormwater. That's in a bucket. The solid waste money's in another bucket, and some of these buckets are created by law. If we have special villages and that say the money has to stay in that bucket, it's got to stay in that bucket. And there's also accounting rules that are pretty strict where the money has to stay in the bucket. And right now, the two, Argo and Gallup, are in the water fund, which is really part of the utilities budget. And there's going to need to be a conversation this spring as we do our budget, because nobody thought of this. Nobody's thought about this for decades. And Argo was still in the utilities budget because at one time it produced power, and it's just been stuck in there all this time. So there's going to need to be a conversation. Is the maintenance of the dams, is that in the proper bucket? And that's a conversation that council will be having this spring as we do the budget. But these costs are not daunting. They're not, these are not, this isn't a couple of $1 million or $1 million to take the dam out. It's yearly maintenance. And that's mostly going, if you read the fine print, it's painting and sealing. Work that has to be done on the dam.